know you're clinging to the light of day, to tell you everything's a-okay. And medication don't do much, yeah, it just numbs the brain. Guess you might say I'm a little intense. I'm on the bright side of...
Okay, I'm going to mic unmuted. Can probably pull out the, well, let's go through and leave it in there. I tried to play a little bit of segment. Eventually I'll get it right, the right levels and everything else for, that's cute. The magnetic headset stand that I have here, attracting metallic items. Okay, I think I'm good on the set. Otherwise, I think I'm unmuted on my mic. I'm still kind of disheveled from not combing any beard or anything like that. Okay. Okay. And I'm still catching up a little bit on my morning here. Let's get that off to the side. Get to the chart. A couple people, at least. How's my levels? How's my levels? Okay. So, and I don't know how many people saw the video from last night. I'll be going through and talking about this, going a little bit further with it, looking at it. And I do have a couple other items. I know what those are, and those aren't really necessarily related to anything. We can do a unboxing for them. And but and so okay, haven't seen anybody in chat yet at all. Just trying to know what how my levels are here. And heck, let's even open up the news group. Open up the Facebook group. Okay. Oh, there's the MC master that they're talking about. And okay. And Tom is saying that the Bull Micro 500 page is now up. Let's go through and put that up in the chat. Everything else. There's the page on the system itself, and then there's the hard drive controller. There's been a little bit of chatter about that recently on the SIF news group. And excellent work from Major Tom. And okay. Yeah, that's the good stuff from the news group. But so just looking over things, I'm gonna get through, and I don't have my tweener system cleaned off the bench quite yet, but I'm gonna go through, and I've got my, of course, the reason I look up again is I have my OBS running on the big screen up above. And we showed a little bit of this manual yesterday, the pamphlet and everything else. I probably need to fire up. Let's see, that'll be, that's cardstock, and that's 8.5 by 11. So I can go through and scan that as a PDF, both sides real easy. And to get that up. And then this is, yeah, cardstock cover. In fact, that's a little bit heavier. The weight of that is, but then the rest of it's regular copy sized paper, standard staple in the middle binding for that. What I typically like to do even there, and I can separate it well enough in a scan, but I'll probably take the binding, I'll probably take the staples out of that. I'd say binding, but it's not really any much of a binding at all. And I can go through and scan to both be able to reproduce this booklet in its entirety, just as it looks here. I mean, that's the quality of the copy machines, these days, right? And then I can probably go through and scan the pages in a logical format of just that half sheet. But this is common for what a lot of manufacturers did back with the printed manual era before it went off to CD, or even later online like it is now, going through and printing it on 8.5 by 11. They were able to do that very well. And fortunately, these days, it's able to, someone like me with a color copy machine can go through and reproduce one of these booklets very easy. And I'm hearing chimes that's just notifications on Facebook. So I wanted to get, I actually wanted to get some pictures of this in the packaging even before I disturb it. And oh, and there's emails coming in. And a little bit of traffic from Lewis. Oh. And Lewis is even prompting me for images of this. He wants images ahead of, well, to get started on his stuff. I'm not going to say ahead of everyone else, but he wants to see it too. And of course, he's seen it. He's seen it in all the online stuff that he's already pulled up. We'll go through. Okay, I do have anti-static. I don't know if that's ground enough there. I'm not feeling a whole bunch of, or noticing a whole bunch of static here in the last few days. We've had some moisture at least. Reusable container. Do not destroy. Handle only static safe, only at static safe workstations. And I'm not going to even, looks like I can do a peel on this. And of course, you have to watch out for the stickiness. Make sure the sticky doesn't get on, attach itself to anything later on. I'm going to do a more a peel otherwise, because I can do that at a relatively non-destructive level. And normally these labels are designed to show when they're breached anyway, or they get typically torn as people open the anti-static wrap. And since this is such a nice, and maybe it's a little bit more for drama. That corner's not going quite as well. And whether I put my fingertips on this morning. Did pretty good from that direction. And I'm not looking to preserve the pristine or hide the fact that I've unwrapping this. It's just nice to preserve this in Let's get it right side up. Like I say, we'll be careful on those labels not to, and it's just to me, I'm going to give him the link too, I think. Do I have the link? Well, I can get the link. I don't want to necessarily play. Okay. I'm creating time distortions here by getting links into the live stream. Yeah, so I sent Lewis notice that he can join the live stream if he wants. Of course, all this is visible on playback too. And I'm seeing views jump up on the YouTube studio monitoring of the stream. Of course, that is very hard to tell a lot of the time of what exactly is going on. Certainly, it seems like it's quiet enough in chat. And I understand people that just want to lurk and watch and everything else. That's fine without going through chat. But here's the drum roll, please. And we pull it out. This is brand new condition as it is in here. Probably first time out of the bag since getting in there from the factory, to make sure that I don't get any static charge as I bring it into the screen. And there's the MC32EE, and the part number 1994. And we'll just do a kind of a slow scan. There's your, in the upper left corner, there's the on off switch. And this is ultimately designed for, of course, as an extender. You have this in the microchannel system, 16 or 32-bit slot, because it's keyed for both. And then you go through and you put in a microchannel board. Now, this is the 32-bit matched memory extension at the end here. So it doesn't have an AVE, that auxiliary video extension, doesn't have BVE, that base video extension. Really, for all that anyway, for video, especially for your base video, this would not be applicable, because you're able to go through and switch this on at a point after you have the system powered up, and go through and even switch it off to pull the adapter out. So it allows, and it's going through and it's buffering even these buffer chips being socketed, ultimately replaceable, that, and I don't know if those would be, I'm assuming those would be commercially available somewhere. I'm not really familiar with the part number off the top of my head. And as we see, this is the end part of 1995. Looks like the 51st week of 1995, probably even into the start of 1996 as it went through. And there's kind of there's a voltage regulator there. There's your ultimately your power of the extender, and also the voltage rails. There's test points. There's that breadboard area that they're talking about. There's jumper settings that are probably identified within the manual. I saw some things about IO range and stuff like that. Who knows if these are more voltage regulators, but everything's silk screened on the board pretty good as far as a ground point. We saw the 5-volt marking where the 5-volt is. We'll look at the back in a moment just to see. There's probably a ground plane and a 5-volt trace there. Cut JP 5, 7, and 14 on SIRE side for external power. Okay, so they're talking about on the reverse side of this, on the solder side, then you would have power leads that would be from these points here. Okay, and copyright 1994 by AZ-COM. I didn't look last night to see if this is still an active website. And as I mentioned, another one of these adapters is going as a gift to another location. I'm sure that they'll appreciate it very much. I've had a little bit of talk, and I know it'll get utilized for that, for where it's going. There's your solder side. Not really any silkscreen markings on this side, surprisingly enough, of the locations where. So these would be the voltage regulators for the external, so-called external power, likely here. I mean, I could get in further into the traces. Oh, I guess there is. No, that's just, and amusingly enough, that even looks like a little bit of soldering damage where the tip, or desoldering, or somebody's trying to pull out components or replace components, and the soldering tip goes against the PCB and kind of scars the enamel coating that's over the top of the trace. It doesn't look like it's really scratching through, but there's definitely some just right on those voltage regulators or whatever. And surprising whether they're, that they're not socketed either, although it's probably pretty good that they're soldered in. And of course, nothing off the back bracket at all. But that is a good look at this. And of course, I'll do the high-res photos on my camera rig too. But that looks like a nice, very nice new board that will come in handy doing this stuff. We showed the brochure a little bit earlier, but showing the different products. I'll get this scanned. And then the jumper settings, and I kind of glossed over the get my camcorder is a little loose, the mount there. Yeah, I do have my camera rig set up there. I've got some EPROMs to image, and I know that there's been some talk about that recently about these the TI or the TL866 2 Plus. Now at least we see some chatter on the chat. I felt that I was talking to myself there for a little bit, but in fact, this is reachable enough without disturbing everything. I'll get this off to the side too, because this is my TL866. I know that there's been a lot of talk online on the Facebook groups about picking these up. Even somebody in the UK went through and they salvaged their retro PC, got it working correctly with an image that they got online, reprogrammed their BIOS for the system, and put it on the system in very short order, within just a matter of hours after receiving everything, not really understanding otherwise on the interface or anything like that. But got it going. This is a really handy thing. And the kits that have just the common adapters, and I mean, I haven't had to use much more than just the PLCC holder and the regular dip mounting. And it does include typically an extractor in for like the larger PLCCs. Well, I guess it goes through and covers just about every size. And you want to be careful, because I mean, I've had EPROMs delid using that tool. This is the packaging that it comes in, and with the common components included, universal programmer, and talking about even Windows 7, Windows 10, I don't know why they include the Windows 2008. They have Vista 2003 and just weird. Okay, I guess it's Win for abbreviations, but these are great little utilities to have. I've comment, the biggest downside to me is how often that they update the application software, and occasionally you have to reflash the unit. And I've only found one particular EEPROM that I'd like to copy, um, that this unit does not have. I mean, it's got thousands of compatible chips. That the one EEPROM that I want to do was used on the MAL 70, the Type 2 planer, the short planer, and it actually reverses 2 pins. It's a Toshiba EEPROM, and there are a few other equivalents, but looks like it was mainly used in the Japanese side. And we got Major Tom on board now. I see. I've after I did the yeah, the Ramblethon 2022. It I guess if I'm going to be on screen here, I can put myself on the webcam screen. But yeah, it's the TL866 2 Plus is really to me it's the device to have. As I say, they upgrade the application software so much, then if you're connected to the internet with that machine, it'll go through and tell you need the update and gives you all the link and everything. You start learning the navigation through their path and all the Chinese language script that's all over everything. And you learn what links to click to get the update. And the server at that other end is not really anything fantastic. It typically is a slower download for all that because of the restrictions on that other end. And yeah, people borrow these things and then don't return them. They think they're handy enough and everything. But I did show, it's available in playback, of course, and I'll have images of that for to be put up and to help with diagrams, help Lewis with the diagrams. But I had pulled out that a little bit earlier. Nice to see, really beautiful new adapter. I had the make sure I don't place things off. Like say, you got to be warned of the sticky aspect. And before I got on Ramblethon 2022, yeah. So John, this is a extender, and it's ultimately where you plug that into a microchannel system. As it says, you keep the power on. You're able to go through and switch the power to the adapter on and off to be able to pull the card out, the adapter out of the where you have it on the extender. After you powered off, it's buffered, protected from and making it so it doesn't impact the system as much as you're going through and troubleshooting an adapter. And I went over the manual a little bit in the previous video, and this is why I had my webcam off because I don't like that that out of phase difference, and I like to have the whole screen where I can show. I know what I'm displaying on the screen on the camcorder. But I went through and I was earlier in the live stream. I talked about being able to separate this booklet, being able to scan it, and get that up. So it's not really as much of a thing for everybody to read this because we'll get the scan up soon enough. I talk about the jumpers, overcurrent, and the one thing I did talk about, Major Tom, was I didn't know whether these buffer chips are socketed, and I didn't know if they were necessarily commercially available. And even despite all the chatter that we had before this, that I didn't go through and check to see if this place is still the pages are still active for the manufacturer either. And so, and I did say that another. Well, I was talking to myself back then. And the there's a second adapter of these that's going as a gift to someone that's off in the development side. In fact, he made the snart barker. I'm going through and I have a second adapter, one of these adapters going to Eric, two-time US. And yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Is those bus switches, they're socketed, so it should be relatively easy to get spares. Okay, so we're interested in kind of some sections here on controlling the UME32 can be controlled by two different methods, using the hardware switch and jumpers or using software control. And using the hardware switches and jumpers, this will again be available in replay and then won't really matter once I have the booklet scanned here as well. Okay, and do not remove or install a tested card when the power LED is turned on. This can damage the Universal MC Extender 32, the computer motherboard, and or the tested card. So you can demolish everything is what the warning is there. And then there's a thing about the software control. Okay. The bus state. The main switch. And this is, independent of that switch on the extender, meaning that if the power light is on the extender, it can also be affected by software control. Doesn't matter for the condition, the switch position that it is on the extender board itself. And sure, it would be nice for something like momentary or something else, a switch position that reflects what status that it's in, but you have that power LED. Okay, and then you have even the sensing, the overcurrent of the voltages. power enable to the top connector, all under software control. So kind of a cool little device. There's your control registers. Bus on command of how you send information out. Bus off command. And they even give examples of the code. And of course, that's assembly language, x86 assembly language. And of course, on a microchannel RS6000, you could have the equivalents as well. Okay. There's your software disable command. The reset on command. So that's sent to the adapter that you have in the extender. Reset on, reset off. Jumper functions. And note that that jumper can be overwritten by software control. There's your IO address selection. Including the test card. And this is set by jumpers. You know, it's not the extender itself is not identified to the system, has no POS ID or anything like that. Even talks about the breadboard pins that are activated when the base address is going. Allows you to connect to external power supply. And that's what those jumper traces that they're talking about. And then the breadboard area. And they're right in saying that that's a pretty small breadboard area. All the signals required to implement a parallel IO port are conveniently located at the B2 connector. Just some of the text on that. We just have a few pages left here. Troubleshooting. Talking about IO address conflict. Delay to the signal propagation between the MC bus, microchannel bus, and the test card. May cause some or all of your cards to fail to operate correctly. And remove all unnecessary cards from the microchannel bus. Talk to your design engineer to find out if there's any known marginal timing issue. So as we see the use case for this extender of where this would be used in development of or troubleshooting of the microchannel adapters. Okay, and then we have specifications as the last page. Maximum current at 5 volts is 8 amps. All others, or all other voltages, are the 2 amp. There's your overcurrent, the bus switch, the signal direction, power on, overcurrent, physical traits, and then the address and support number. And their current products. And then they have the so-called passive extended cards, which I also have for microchannel. For pricing or to place orders, phone or fax. And keep the power on with AZ-COM. Printed in the USA, and we'll do a scanning in the USA for a reproduction of that manual in the USA. So that there's that. Let me get back to the chat. Yeah. Yeah, delays that the microchannel bus being what it is. Yeah. And it looks like control of what voltages go to that card that's in the extender. And as I say, I've got other packages there that for unwrapping, but most of those are pretty pretty bland or kind of on a tangent to any real discussion with the microchannel side. But I'm glad that we've got some relatively good chat content, or at least I know that I'm being heard out there. I just thought I was kind of talking to myself for a moment, going through. And Tom, I did go through and for the Bull Micro stuff that you posted about, I gave a link up at the top of the chat for that, since you notified the SIF news group that you had that done and had that up. And I think Lewis has a page that he's starting to develop for this, but we'll get a little bit further with that. Oh, and I just realized I'm seeing there and you're hearing me talk, and I have my webcam off again. So I'm back viewable with that. Although I may go through and cut that out again if I open up the other packages, just so we don't have that phase delay between the camcorder and the webcam. And okay, it doesn't look like there's really much for me to catch up on otherwise of email or anything. Let's go through in the last 10 minutes. I can go through and I'll hold this to an hour of live stream. And I'm gonna have to get yeah, and it looks real interesting for the Bull Micro machine too. It by the diagrams that you have up, and that even that hard drive controller. And just as a notice to people that we're not entirely IBM, there's many other models that we talk about. And I do want to make sure everyone was aware of the um, Chris Satterfield rescued some machines from salvage, and it a lot of reply stuff in there. In fact, a real nice reply sound card with a wavetable daughter card on it. Okay, so the first packaging I'm doing here is just a short multi-mode fiber optic cable. And this is just a 3-foot. This is for my things like my 8220 testing, those token ring repeater. Just so I can have both 8220s with just a short lead of fiber between them, and to have them both on the bench at the same time, or have them close to each other without a whole bunch of fiber optic, patch cord running around. I think that this one is a little bit more relevant to the token ring side. We'll just do, and I've had this stuff at least for a few days. I think one of them I've had for probably close to a week. It's interesting that you can tag inside the box. It's from Walmart. You can go through and you can have an internal identifier of who it's going to. I guess that could be external as well, if you put it the other way, as a shipping box. But sometimes they need identifiers. I had just received on the inside, because, I mean, if the outside label is damaged, foam blocks here. Oh, this is the cache. Now, I just, this last week, I had a zip drive, SCSI version, delivered to me, U.S. Post Office, or U.S. Postal Service, USPS, and it was waterlogged. And so they delivered it to me in a bag with the "I'm sorry" label on it, or "We're sorry." And I'll just let the eBay seller handle the claim. He's wanting it back. I'm going to get it shipped back to him, probably even today. So this is the cache module that was talked about on the SIF news group, and I don't even know what machine that this goes to. I was first assuming that it was a replacement for the so-called turbo cache, but it has a differing number of pins, and it's either right back or right through from Cumulus. And I'll have to go through and track down another nice little Cumulus thing. And I even saw on the picture, or I thought it looks like it was just probably a parallax error. And I thought one of these pins was bent. Well, one of them looks a little tweaked. But otherwise, this board looks brand new for all that. But it's got these pin headers are different, and the turbo cache module has an extra pin on the inside of one of the headers for just as a keyway. But there is that cache module that I can probably sometime figure out what exactly that went to. and it's got even open pads for, I don't know if that's probably a 128, and it's expandable to a 256 kilobyte cache module, but that's another item that came in. I still need to, there's some cache modules that I need to go through and check on my my turbo board that look very similar to this. And just to see if I can get those going. I'm trying to remember what this one was. I know what the last one is. Oh, this is maybe the token ring board in a softback. Please, when you're sending adapters, do not necessarily send them in soft bubble wrap packages. My famous story with a 46 CPU is somebody sent me a package, a 46 CPU in a soft bubble wrap package like this, a bubble wrap envelope. And the pins of the 46 went through and popped the bubbles, and it bent the pins of the CPU over. Oh, okay, so this is wholly unrelated. This is ultimately from Amazon, an Amazon order. This is some of the cabling I do otherwise. So these, this is just called, in the network terminology, this is called a whisker box, where you go through and it's just a wall plate, has the conventional opening that you'd see for like a modern light switch or outlet box or whatever. And you can get also network headers that go through and have RJ45 punch down connectors and everything else, so you can have your wiring nice and neat. But this is for the other side. These whisker boxes you have cables that you just run through that opening, and you don't have any fancy. It's just it's an easier transitional. It makes it look nice from the outside if you don't have any cables going through it, and then it just adapts for whatever cables that you have. And I can, even though I do have my my cable clamp, so to speak, this is a weighted. This has got some heft to it. This is where you run your cables on your desktop, and just to have them available. In fact, let me see what that is identified as. Envisioned, I guess, is probably the brand. Oh, a little bit better on the bottom. And it even has, so it has what looks like to be, I don't know if those are threaded at all. Yeah, I don't see any threads. Of course, what helps, since the light was so good, the natural light, I didn't have the ring light turned on. But this is a rubberized coating, a metal plate under here, just as a way to keep your cables handy on the desktop. I've had this in the past in front of my ClearClick device, and cables running out, VGA cables, keyboard cables, whatever. But I might go through and I'm thinking of putting a box on the back of my bench here, beyond the power the switch, the switch box here for power, going through and mounting that. And I joked around, in 2 weeks I'm going to be seeing when both me and Clint from LGR, are in Dallas, Texas, at Computer Reset. That power switch box has a wood grain finish on the side of it, like Clint likes. And I was gonna joke around with him, but I'll probably put a box back on the back of the bench with these whisker boxes that I can just run cables to. But I got these otherwise because they're kind of handy. I got enough of them too, because I like having these things around as I go through and do network cabling. They're really kind of handy a lot of the time, completely unrelated otherwise to the discussion at hand here, of course, or anything to do with the live stream. Although on my channel, I am likely going to do a little bit more of the networking content. And we've gone over for time, but that's fine. I'm going to do this last box, and then we'll probably do an outro from there. And I know what this is as well. I'm looking for the tab. Don't these things have a tab? A tear tab? I guess not for this one. And this is industrial strength. Yeah, it's easier to go from the side. It's not pinned down. I know what these are. And this is a little bit of a tangent so far to my topics. But this will help a little bit later on. And I got them because they were just so inexpensive. And the reason that they're inexpensive is there's not really many use cases for these things otherwise for what they are. So this, and I got two of them because just the listing, the eBay listing. Oh, and they have the dims and everything. That's great. I saw the dims on the picture and I kind of wondered. So let's unbag one of these. So you'll see the connector straight off. And again, I don't think that there's too much static running around in here. It's not really dry, the air being dry or anything like that. So you notice the 32-bit PCI, and then this extension, and this extension being odd, and I forget what they call they call this like a RAID port or something else like that. And this is actually an Adaptec card. Now it is these are under I think it's Dell firmware. It's probably even branded, although it works, with other things as well, with other manufacturers, because I'm going to go through and use these. The server, PC Server 330 has one of these, and what they do is they have Adaptec chips on the planar, and then this goes through and does some RAID caching and some other things to that. And I'll do a close-up of there's the Adaptec part number. And these, as far as I know, they're branded as Dells. And I did see, I don't know how many other systems really use this. The only header otherwise it's got is probably for drive activity or your RAID, something to do with your RAID backplane maybe, or something like that, or some status or other things from that LED. But then here's your cache, your RAID cache. And I don't really see any identifier on that. Maybe I mean, that might be as fast as 6 nanosecond. I mean, they're getting, you know, getting memory that was pretty fast for all that. But that's just a ultimately cache for the onboard SCSI. In this instance, on the PC server 330 and probably the 325 too. I think the 325 was slightly smaller, but it had a lot of the same CPU support. That does look like, yeah, that's a little bit of a dust on the back that we can tell, probably even the orientation. This would be a pull from a system and had this adapter in this position so that all the dust settled in. And of course, we want to necessarily be aware of static, but then, you know, I have my lens brush typically I use for a lot of things like this. There are instances where you can build up static charges on these nylon brushes, the bristles, so going over certain materials. But that's just how I commonly dedust those. And these are only about $10 a piece. And I mean, there's the shipping was $10 for a single adapter. I'll have to look. I think I paid 30 to 40 for the two of them, which is not really a bad purchase for all the potential of what this can do to my RAID setup of the PC server 330. And I actually have the drive separate. I'm thinking I have a type 3 backplane of that, but my RAID cage on the PC servers 330 is wide open, and that will be an adapter that we get. Excuse me, a system. We need to get a little bit more information up on the PC server 325 and PC server 330. Get those documented. Since they aren't microchannel systems, they haven't really been, yeah, 60 nanosecond SD RAM. I think that's probably your guess, electronic wise, is a little bit better than mine. My speculation, my blind speculation. But it's just interesting for that extra RAID port connector or whatever on there, that there's just not that many systems out there that have that connector that can go through and use this adapter. So when I saw two of being available, I said, well, I'm going to grab those because, and I grabbed both of them on the listing just because they're a nice little price. I can always go through and have one on a PC server 330 and have the other on a PC server 325 or for document or otherwise. But that's kind of the unboxing, as it were. There's going to be more details. I need to get busy today with going through and getting these manuals scanned in for the sender board and some pictures for Lewis so he can go through and diagram a little bit more, and we can get the page up on this. And yeah, it's funny. Did I open? See, I have one of my boxes or bags. I didn't see it here. I saw him at a token ring board. You said Jesse talked about, or excuse me, John talked about bits of a System 36. I actually have a token ring adapter board for probably the I series of AS400. Because the I series AS400s were based on the Netfinity chassis the boards in there and things like that. But I found a for cheap price, I found a token ring, the token ring adapter board, PCI form, that they use on an I series AS400, and I ordered it. I'm surprised. I probably still have it in the car. I'm surprised I didn't unbox it here because I thought I went through and grabbed it and was inspecting it. I know it's arrived, and I have to see how it's packaged, but it's got just the appearance of a token ring PCI otherwise. I mean, it's a little bit more industrialized. It doesn't necessarily look as involved as like the land streamer um, stuff, but it has a heat sink on one of the chips, and it's just a little bit different. That's the only reason that I got it, was that it's different from the other token ring boards, and just going a matter of documenting a little bit of the stuff. But it is probably very specific to the I series AS400s. And yeah, and that sounds that 425SX/SI sounds like a value point system. And I'm not talking anything against the IBM value points, but they were a pretty budget system, and but they, some of those models are actually pretty neat, where they have the Vesa local bus and things like that. Yeah, it could also the PS1. They had the consultant level of the PS1s that were 46 SX and DX, and those have really nice styling. They're good. Of course, the PS1s are targeted at the home market, whereas the value points for the office thing, and the just having IBM cutting prices to come up with a budget system that based on the Clone Wars of being undercut in prices for a lot of systems out there. But I think we had a real good live stream today. I'm going to go through. I'll do just an outro otherwise, and I realize that there's other people that dropped off already, but I really enjoy people participating in this opportunity that I have on a regular schedule to cover these live streams that people can participate in, and kind of see a little bit of me going through and unboxing things or chatter about whatever. So I'm just going to end it to say, this is IBM Museum. That's all I have for now. Get my mouse pointer over in the appropriate spot. Thank you. Thank you for everybody for dropping by and viewing the stream.